Hello and welcome back to Tinker Talks Guns. Some time ago, I purchased an unspecified lower for an AR-15, a stripped lower. And I just did it because it was there, it was cheap, and it was easy to do, so no worries. And it sat around for a couple of years. And I kind of forgot I had it, but over that time, various friends had said, oh, hey, you have an AR lower, here's a spare part. So I got a stock, a trigger, a drop-in trigger module, and various other bits. And then one day when cleaning up, I ran across the receiver and the miscellaneous parts and thought, I should finish this. And this coincided with a friend pointing out that he had a 90s ban era AR-15 upper 16-inch barrel with no muzzle device and an A2 style handle that he was doing nothing with, and I could have it if I liked. So I put together the parts bin special AR, and it was kind of fun. It was satisfactory, and over time, various other people offered various things, and I found various parts around the shop and put it together into a useful rifle. But it was a useful rifle that was redundant and had never been intended to be more than anything but a hobby. And yesterday, its evolution continued. So before we get into the weeds on that, I'd like to thank my supporters on Patreon. This is very much a shoestring operation, as this project illustrates. And your contributions help more than you know. Also like to thank channel benefactors, those individuals and businesses who have contributed to the channel in innumerable ways and really helped make this work. And as always, shout out to Rain City Shooting Center for providing material support for the channel. Now, so what I had was a 16-inch carbine with A2 sights and a optics mount onto which I threw a random TRS-25 Bushnell that was sitting around and sighted it in. And, you know, it was interesting, but it was never meant to be a fixed configuration or to be just one thing. It was the gun I'd play with. So yesterday, a friend came over and he had assembled his own AR, again, on an unspecified receiver that was neither sold as a pistol nor a rifle. And he had come up with a configuration that he found ill-suited to his needs. As it turns out, the upper and stock from the parts bin AR were ideally suited to his needs, and he was amenable to trading his suboptimal setup for my setup, and the trade was accomplished. So now I have an AR-15 pistol in 5.56 with an 8-inch barrel, to which I mounted the optic that came with the pistol optic mount for a 1911 that I picked up earlier in the week. And understand something, this is widely regarded as possibly the worst possible configuration for an AR-15. You lose a lot ballistically from the 8-inch barrel. The stock, well, the recoil tube, does have this cushy sleeve around it, but it is really short. Turn off the optic, I left it on. It is really, really short and neither particularly comfortable nor efficient to use. Come on, down to 0. Good thing I only left it on overnight. So in this configuration, it is suboptimal. Now, there are other ways of using this, like a cheek weld on the end of the stock. But again, this is not a great combination, and it doesn't provide the utility you'd really want from something that could be classed as a PDW. Now, the main reason that this 8-inch barrel is considered suboptimal is twofold. One is the ballistics, and two is the muzzle blast is kind of insane. But there are things that can be done about that. Things short of putting a silencer on it. And I'm going to be experimenting with those. Also, the ballistics are suboptimal, but what this does, according to Ballistics by the Inch with M193 ball ammo, 55 grain full metal case, is you get an average velocity of 2,350 feet per second or so, and 692 foot-pounds of energy, comparable to a 357 Magnum. You also get a much flatter trajectory and greater reach. So it's not useless, even though it is suboptimal. And of course, you have to decide for yourself whether the trade-offs are worth it. To me, we'll see. But the main reason for me to do this was, first of all, the configuration the rifle was in. It was redundant. And while it wasn't actually suboptimal, my other AR is configured in a much, much better, more useful fashion. So I got this as a toy, something to play with, something to experiment with. I was curious about the ballistics. I'm curious about a lot of things about this setup. I'm curious if I can come up with a muzzle device, fabricate a muzzle device that will help tame the insane muzzle blast without actually being a suppressor that needs to be stamped. And this, I'm not going to shoot it in this configuration because I have a pistol brace, and it is much, much better suited to task than this short, stubby tube. So I'm going to change that out before I even shoot this, because I already know I'm not going to like this. One thing about ballistics that people don't consider is the differences in ammunition. My friend Mike pointed out that they had tested a variety of 55 grain ball out of an 8-inch barreled AR just to see what would happen. And what they found was that a lot of the commercial ball produced extreme variations in velocity from the 8-inch barrel, but that mil-spec ammo was reasonably consistent. I have both. So I can try that, chronograph the loads, get an idea of my own results, what works and what doesn't. In other words, this is just an extension of my hobby. I wonder about things. I had the opportunity to find out, so I'm going to find out. So future me will be adding to this video after the brace is installed and I can get to a range. So, big fun. So, I'm going to turn it over to future me and let him take it from there. Okay, future me here. So, I have been to the range. Now, before I went to the range, I did not shoot it with the pistol tube on by itself because I knew I would not like that. Been there, done that. So a friend of mine brought over this piece for a brace, which unfortunately would not fit over the pistol tube. So what I did was I turned the pistol tube down, part of it at least, to mil-spec, and I made a piece here out of micarta to engage the mechanism to allow it to be telescoped or extended. And that will work fine for now. I will be getting a proper pistol brace for it. What I did not do is sight in the red dot. It was close enough for today's purposes. And I fired the weapon. I chronographed 2 different loads and see what I'm getting. And then I had a couple of friends, CJ and Kyle, shoot it to give their impressions. And I'll give you my impressions after we have a look at that footage.
What's amazing is I did not zero the optic.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, wow.
What do you think?
So it felt like a shotgun in a rifle. Can't deny the sheer power of it, both in sound and the surprisingly accurate. Even though, as you said, it's not soaked in at all that way. But no, straight on. No, it's a lot of fun to shoot. It feels like a Hollywood gun, if that makes sense.
Makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah, no, so definitely winner that way. Fun.
You ready?
Ready?
What do you think?
It would be a great home defense weapon
Because
because of how small it is. And on top of that, it's it's a rifle, so it's going to be easier to hold on to than a handgun. But it's small enough that if you would normally get a shotgun for home defense, you could have this. And just the sound of this thing would make somebody crap their pants. No joke, man.
plus, if you miss, you might set them on fire.
And I mean, like Kyle before me, even though you said that the dot's not, it's still really accurate. Surprisingly accurate. Holy crap. It doesn't have a whole lot of kick. I mean, it's 5.7. It wouldn't normally have a whole lot of kick, but I think it's easy to just da-da-da-da-da.
Okay, so first of all, the chronograph results. I fired two types of ammo. I fired Wolf brass case 55 grain and Hornady NATO 55 grain. And bear in mind that both of these are loaded around the idea that they will be fired through a 20-inch barrel. So they lose about 900 feet per second over a 20-inch barrel shot out of this gun. And the results, which I'll have to read. So the Wolf 55 grain made an average of 2302.5 feet per second with 647 foot-pounds of energy. The standard deviation was 14.3 feet per second, and the extreme spread was 44 feet per second. That's pretty good, given that it's being fired from an 8-inch barrel, especially in terms of the standard deviation and extreme spread. The Hornady NATO did okay, but it did not fare quite as well, making an average of 2285 feet per second for 637 foot-pounds of energy, and that's fine. Then we get to the standard deviation, which is 31.8, more than twice as big, and the extreme spread was 90 feet per second. Cut them some slack. This is an 8-inch barrel and 20-inch barrel ammo. So that gives you an idea of the kind of results you're going to get. So you're actually getting 357 Magnum energy with a much flatter trajectory and very low recoil. And that gets to the shooting impressions. This has very low recoil, and at 10 yards, double taps were landing practically on top of each other. So the lower muzzle velocity means less recoil, and it's really very controllable, very accurate, and it's a lot of fun to shoot if you're not standing next to it. Because that's where we get to the bad news. Muzzle blast is a thing. I had someone 3 lanes down from me at the shooting range poke their head out and say, "My God, what is that? I felt that in my chest." Muzzle blast is seriously significant. Now, when firing it, you don't actually notice the muzzle blast particularly. And it really happens so fast, your eye doesn't really react to it. So you don't get spots or in front of your eyes or anything. But it is, if you're standing to the side watching it, it is significant. And the concussion is real. I didn't notice it with me standing behind the gun, but everyone else on the shooting range did. So that's a thing. So again, very nice to shoot. We were shooting at 10 yards, 15 yards. Accuracy is really not an issue, but what was an issue that was noticeably good was the follow-up shots and how accurate they were. Now, I'm going to make a project of trying to mitigate that muzzle blast without actually resorting to a suppressor. So I'll be doing I have some ideas and I'll be doing some experimentation with that. But I think the very least thing we're looking at is a blast can. Simple, cheap, easy. But I think maybe we can do better than that. So I have to say, except for the muzzle blast as a PDW, this actually makes a hell of a lot more sense than I thought it did. Because again, it's very easy to shoot, and it's very easy to shoot rapidly and accurately, especially with this trigger. That was a modular trigger given to me by a friend. I'm sorry, Pat, I've forgotten what it's called. I'll have to look that up and see if I can figure it out. One thing that was a big issue was heat. We put 100 rounds through this gun in a relatively short period of time. And by the end of the last magazine, I didn't want to hold on to this. This aluminum rail got very hot. It didn't burn me, but it was unpleasant. So that's a thing to think about. But other than that, I'm a little disappointed. This is less stupid than I expected it to be. The only two real issues are the muzzle blast, which is extreme, and how fast the handguard heats up. But both of those might be manageable problems. I don't know what that was. And I'm going to work on that and play around with it and see what I can come up with. But overall, I mean, I really like it. So I'll be playing with this a whole lot more. And I'm going to be doing hobby stuff with the brake and various other aspects of it. And probably eventually I will SBR it and put a ridiculous stock of some kind on it, which a friend of mine has already volunteered. So you're going to be seeing more of this and various iterations and modifications, because this gun was always intended to be a hobby. One thing that did happen that was rather odd was that at the range, the bolt wouldn't lock back. It locked back before I went to the range, never had an issue. And it just locked back now, as you see. But at the range, the bolt would not lock back or lock back on empty. I have no clue. But I'll be trying to figure that out too. So anyway, I like it. It's fun. It's nice to shoot until it gets too hot. And it's pretty cool overall. And that was always the point of this gun, was to be cheap and pretty cool. So, mission accomplished. I hope this finds you well. Stay safe, take care, and I'll talk to you again real soon.